Yeah, welcome everybody to today's third technical webinar, which is organized by the Global Action Partnership for EPR. In today's webinar, we will focus, as you can see on the slide, on cost, fees, and eco-modulation. And next slide, thank you. As always, I would like to ask you to mute yourself while the presentation is ongoing. Yeah, as I said, the session is recorded, so please note that. And maybe you can I don't know, take or stop the camera if you don't agree with that. And yeah, again, please use the chat for any questions that you may have. It would be great if you could indicate your name and organization when you ask a question. And after the presentation, we will also have enough time for questions and a discussion. And here you can, of course, also raise your hand and post your question orally. Also in the previous sessions, the views and opinions of the experts expressed in this webinar do not necessarily reflect the positions of all core partners of the Global Action Partnership for EPR. Yeah, and maybe I'll just give you a very short introduction of who the Global Action Partnership for EPR is. I can see that Peter is also on the call. Nice to see you, Peter. The GAP for EPR, how we call it in short, was launched in October by GIZ, WWF, and OECD, and with support from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and UNEP. And as you can see on the slide, it consists of three main pillars. The one pillar is like a library where we try to collect main publications and documents on EPR. You can find this on our website. Then we have a help desk where we provide support to countries, to governments, to PROs, or whoever else is implementing EPR. Yeah, through an expert pool. And here at this place, I would like to, of course, invite you to share your requests or to send us your requests of support through a format which you can find also on our website. And also maybe an information which might be relevant to some of you is that support or advice to low and middle income country representatives through the help desk is generally for free. So this is a great offer, I would say. And then the third pillar is the community, and this is basically a peer-to-peer learning space where we try to connect EPR practitioners with each other to learn, to mutually learn from each other, and to basically provide a platform to discuss different kinds of topics around EPR. And during the launch event, we received quite a number of technical questions, which we could not all answer throughout the launch, which is why we kind of clustered these technical sessions and came up with the idea to answer them mainly in three webinars. And these are the three parts that you can see on the slide. In the first part, on the 5th of December, we addressed the topic of common EPR setups and architectures. Then on the 11th, data needs and monitoring. And today, the topic, as I said, is costs, fees, and eco-modulation. All the other two webinars were also recorded, and you can find them on the Prevent YouTube channel, which has also been linked here on the slide. Yeah, and this was all from my side. And now I would like to welcome Agnes Bühnemann, who's the CEO of Zyklos, and Nicola Trotos, who's a EPR consultant at Zyklos, who will share their insights and knowledge on the topic today. Zyklos is a leading German audit and advisory firm specialized in waste management and circular economy and EPR. And apart from the firm's core business in recyclability assessment, certification, and mass flow verifications, Zyklos has a strong track record on supporting EPR implementation in low and middle income countries, especially leveraging their knowledge of EPR systems from Europe. Yeah, and in this line, Zyklus advises numerous companies, administrations, ministries, NGOs, and associations around all different kinds of waste management topics. And with this, I would like to hand over to you, Agnes. The floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Nicole, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. I don't know, please unmute your microphone. I think not all did it. Maybe there are some open. Okay, better now. Okay, today our agenda is first to give an overview about the need for EPR and the need for financing this EPR system and to build it up step by step with this financial support. And of course, it is very difficult to say, okay, to start it, how much fees and how can we create the right figures for the fees and so on. And we want to give you some insights and some help on this. Worldwide, you can see that the products are being sold in the same, or the most of them, same in this same packaging. Here you see picture. Can you see pictures from some of the MENA region, and you can see the same you can find in Germany and worldwide in the stores. But you can see very, very big difference how to handle this. And in European countries or some countries with EPR systems, there is a very good environment footprint because the packaging are recycled, but you need here cost for sorting, recycling, and for organization. And in a lot of countries, there is a bad environmental footprint, while landfill is used for, at the moment, low cost, but later on, maybe there will be very high cost and the environmental footprint is very, very bad. Yes, therefore, worldwide is a need to transfer from landfill to a circular economy, and this is really the target of the EPR system. And this process is linked to more organization and to costs. We want to delete, and that in no country we will find dump sites and landfill like these here, and to achieve a circular economy from the packaging manufacturers, the packaging users, the private users, and then to collection, sorting, and recycling. And one very, very big thing is extended producer responsibility, a very important approach. EPR applies the polluter pays principle by shifting the responsibility and the financial cost of the environmental externalities and the sorting, the collection and recycling to the producers and importers. And on the other side, EPR is a very fair system because the costs have only to be borne by those who buy packed goods and who sells packed goods. Yes, and those who buy less packed goods, they pay less. Therefore, we think it's a very, very fair system. What is the core or the basic of the payments and to find out who has to pay how much? And the most EPR system covered the sales packaging for goods used by private households or similar packaging like restaurants, hotels, kindergartens, schools, or hospitals or something like this, where you use same packaging, typical packaging which are typically used at households, and also including shipment packaging and service packaging, which are filled when they are sold. At the moment when you buy it, they are filled in this moment. Therefore, they are a little bit different to handle in the financial basic and for calculation the fees. In some countries, you can also find that the EPR system shall cover, or second EPR system shall cover the transport and commercial packaging and the packaging of large industries and large business and industry. But this is not a household collection system. It is a separate system which is installed at the big companies and at the industry. We are focused today on the sales packaging and the service packaging. These packaging must be collected. The inhabitants have to be informed about the new system, and all these costs must be covered by EPR fees, and these EPR fees must be calculated for these packaging. You have to identify these packaging in each country, in every country where EPR system shall be installed. Product under EPR in all countries are, for example, here some supermarket products and also service packaging. They are filled when you buy it. The fee season is before filled if the producer is selling these empty packaging, and here they have to pay license fee if they are selling into a country or bring it on the market filled packaging. This is the difference in the interface when the producers and the importers have to pay. When they bring these first time on a market in a country, the filled packaging like this, or the service packaging not yet filled. What are the obliged packaging? The same in another view again. If they bring it on the market and import it for consumption in this country A, or if it is produced in the country and will stay and consumed in the country. If you fill it in the country and export it, then you may pay license fee in this country where you export it. But you are not obliged in the country where you produce these and are filling these. Who is obliged? Companies, every importer of packaged goods intended for consumption in the country, and every importer of packaged goods intended for every producer, every importer and every producer. And also every importer of service packaging for consumption in the country and the producer, yeah? As I have showed on this slide before. And the obliged packaging of good and service packaging are sold in this country, and packaging becomes waste in the country. It should also be paid in the country where the packaging will become waste. The philosophy, again, is to shift the cost from waste collection to the producers or importers' EPR fees. It is a fair financing system. You buy less, you pay less. And incentive for eco-design modulate fees is the third step and not the first one. Please set up first a good EPR system, and in the next steps, it's better if you learned how to build and how to work in an EPR system, then to modulate the fees on the aspects of eco-design. We will speak later about this. Now the cost revenues expenditures in the EPR system. Here, I think some of you know already this picture, but it is necessary to see, okay, these PRO or all PROs have to pay for collection, sorting, recycling, for communication, and for the system operator themselves. They need personal support and so on. And these costs have to be covered by the fees of the obliged companies. These are the producer and the importers. Maybe there are revenues or reserves from years before. Maybe there are some revenues. Maybe it is calculated already here, but it can also be calculated that there is a flow, financial flow back to the PRO. Must not be, but our knowledge is that only about, our experience is that only about 20% of all costs you need here are covered by the sales revenues. I often hear, oh, there are a lot of sales revenues and we are digging like gold and something like this, but it is not really. The costs are high for, there are higher costs for collection and sorting and recycling, and the revenues never ever will cover the cost of a nationwide collection system when you collect all packaging. Maybe they will be covered if you only will collect some kind of packaging which has a high value. Yeah? This is done today by the informal market. But if you build up a nationwide collection system for all packaging, you need an additional financing financed by the participation. And we know that if there is really build up a PRO, they can use donations, international fundings, for example, for building up recycling plants, because if they can show that the rolling costs in later years, if they use these recycling paths, are covered, and there are the amounts, then maybe the European or US aid or any other foundation, other fundings can be used from the PRO and can be got. The PRO can get them. Sorry. What are the financing obligations? Nationwide collecting of used packaging under EPR, sorting, recycling, support of research, provision of information for separate collection and sustainable consumption, waste prevention, reuse, preparation for recycling, and other forms from recovery. There must be information, documentation, and monitoring, and littering prevention and collection of littered products under or packaging under EPR. Yes, these scope of each obligations depends on the legal requirements. Yeah. Here again, this is the key, and in the EPR system, the consumers, they have to bring it to separate collection points. It can be collection points or door-to-door collection. You need, for lightweight packaging, sorting plants to sort it in minimum these material fractions, cardboard, PT, HDPE, metals, and cement kilns, and all these must be covered by EPR fees. And this needs, of course, a good organization with a system operator who will collect the cash flow and give the cash flow for communication, for waste management, and of course to support better design. And these fees must be paid by the obliged companies, manufacturers, importers, manufacturers of service packaging, importers of service packaging. And it must cover these costs for collection, sorting, recycling. But we don't know these costs here. We don't know these fees here yet. Here, one example, it's from France some years ago. They say, okay, about half of the cost are used for collection services and for sorting and recovery and for communication and for some other organizational issues. But the highest amount is for collection and for sorting and treatment and preparing for recycling. Now, how to calculate fees for these services. Here, one example from Spain. You can see here, they call it green dot fees in eco-members. The costs are, these are costs per kilogram of packaging they bring on the market. And you can see here that the cost first in the year were 377 for HDPE, and then now it's 400. Yeah, you have now higher cost in the most material fraction, but they don't differentiate very much. Therefore, I show you the example of Belgium in 2023 and 2024. They have more differentiations in the material fractions, what is already eco-modulation, because for transparent and colorless PET bottles, for example, it's cheaper, really cheaper, but then if there is opaque or colored flakes, it is really expensive with 1,000 euro per ton. Yeah, it is already an eco-modulation, but on a high level, not individual, very individual level, but on a high level in this list. And yes, they already set the fees in Belgium and in Spain a long years ago. They when the EPR system started. But now, if you want to start, how can you start? First, the status is there is no information about what packaging are brought on the national market. But it would be good to have a rough estimation that you know, okay, are there 10,000 tons of PET bottles or 20,000 or 100,000 tons, that you have really a rough idea about the estimation and the estimated amount. And the same for waste management, to say, okay, first step, a collection system must be defined. Do we want have curbside collection from house to house, or collection in collection points? And if you want to install some collection points, like in Spain, then you can say, okay, in the first year, we want to install in the EPR system 1,000 collection points. And for these 1,000 collection points, you can make a tender and say, okay, 10,000 collection points, one collection point maybe is 400, to build it up is 400 euro. And to transport this is maybe per ton 40 euro, and so on. And so you can find out a little bit, a rough estimation about the costs you would need in the first 1 or 2 years. But all the time, please know, you need to change the cost. They are really learning years, the first years. Yes, you will. You have to change it and to see. Okay, is it? Will it cover the cost, or do we need more services? And you will change the cost. You will change the services maybe every half a year. The basic and the condition, and it's absolutely necessary that you will have a register. The registration with master data of the obliged companies and data reporting with information about packaging the companies bring to market. Yeah, because the cash flow is based on the reported data. You need the data reporting to find out what the individual companies and importers have to pay. These data are the basic. Therefore, the very, very first step is the registration with the master data to know, okay, there are only maybe 100 companies registered, but we know in our country will be 2,000. Therefore, really you have to work on it, you have to communicate, you have to work with the groups of the Chamber of Industry, the Chamber of Commerce, and with all involved parties to find out who has to register trade and to fill out the register with and this is the next step, good data reporting. The registration can be published with some master data with the name and the brand of the company. In a lot of countries, they are published. And then the competitors can see, oh, this company is not yet registered. Then you can find out, okay, they are still missing in the register. And next step is the data reporting about packaging information, about the material of the packaging, and information about the weight of each material. Some additional can be about the fillings. Is it food or non-food or beverage inside? And later on about recyclability of the packaging. Yes, I think it's good not to start with this information, but to say, okay, maybe only HDPE is cheaper than mixed plastic or films and so on. And therefore, I want to show you one very concrete example. It's virtual, but it's here. A company called Company A brings food packaging without packaging, a beverage packaging, 50 tons on the market, and other mixed composites, 20 tons, and 20 tons paper and 30 tons glass, for example, and has 100 tons of PET bottles and 40 tons of metal cans and 10 tons of glass, and also packaging of home and personal care with paper and carton and with mixed plastics, 70 tons service packaging in this example, and 20 tons of others. They don't have any beverage cartons. And you know this from one, here not only from one company, but this is an example to say, okay, in this way I can find out all weight of all companies. Yeah. This one company is registered. They send the data, what they bring on the market in this year. And if the register will add all other producers and all other producers will send this data, they know, okay, in this country, you will have 15,000 tons of PET bottles, 50,000 tons of plastic films, and so on and so on, and in total 262 tons. It's an example of data, maybe in a country with a small country, 5 to 10 million inhabitants, I think, will have this data. And then, okay, we have knowledge about this, and you don't know yet the costs here for collection sorting. But you can say, okay, to find it out, services to be covered by costs are not determined yet. But initial fee can say, okay, what can we do in this country? What do we want to do? And what is required for setting government mandated benchmarks? Maybe they say in the first year you should cover 10% of the inhabitants, or 1,000 collection points, or 10% of the market share you should collect. And a period to accumulate experience and data. These are the first years, learning years. And to say, okay, when I know these in total of all companies, I can say, okay, how can it be fair, and can it be transparent, and can it be logic to calculate the fees? Maybe PET bottles, they can be recycled already in the country, then the fee should only be $10. Plastic films and bags cannot yet, maybe a little bit, 100. Plastic packaging of HDPE have a better price. You can learn this from the informal sector, really, and to involve them here, to calculate the fees, to ask them, what is the price? What do you need for collection if you will collect it everywhere, worldwide or nationwide? Other plastics cannot yet be recycled, but you will want to build up recycling plants. Beverage cartons, the same, and other mixed composites, and say, okay, everything which cannot yet be recycled, and we have to build up a new recycling system, really, it's a high price. And you start with this and say, okay, if everybody will pay, then we will have 10,950,000 US dollar in the first year. And this means, okay, a bottle weight with 70 gram. And if there is paid 10 euro per ton for PT, it will be more cost from 0.017 cent per bottle. Even if it would be 100 for US dollar per ton, it would be 0.17, yeah, 10 times more. You never ever will feel the costs here on the similar, on one similar packaging. Yeah. With an approach like this, you set a price per ton and see what services the PO can cover with these costs. However, you can expect to have a significant proportion of free riders in the first years, and maybe you calculate with 10 million and you will only have 6 million because there are a lot of free riders in the first year. They don't know how to find out, and so on, what the right amount of their packaging, what is the weight, how can they find out, and you can work with the tax offices, with customs, and so on. Another approach is to say, okay, what do we need in the first year. Maybe you say, we want in our country build up 10,000 collection points. And these collection points, and to make it empty and to use it, needs 15 million. Yeah, here, you know only this, 15 million. And then you can work on it and say, okay, how can I cover these costs? How expensive should it be? Maybe 15 euro or a dollar, to say that the sum will be 15 million and cover these expected costs. Therefore, here, fast run. If you set it up, then from waste management companies, find out how expensive it will be, approximate EPR fees, calculate setup costs, and then there must be regulate fee adjusting, and then the quantity system participation and fees must be linked really to all services, and to that all will participate. I think it needs about 2 years. Maybe more, maybe less. Okay, this was a very short and fast run through the fees, how you can determine the fees. And now I want to answer the questions we have got. One question was, low-income countries often raise the point that EPR will increase living costs. Is that right? I've shown you, no, it is not right. First aspect is it is fair. If they buy less, they have to pay less. Second aspect is the costs are small per item. And the third aspect is that the obliged companies need not to give the cost to the inhabitants. They can bear it by themselves or in other way. Second question is about small island or about regions where it is difficult to collect, high collection point and low but not good packaging, or low quantities of packaging. And this is really correct. It is therefore important that the EPR system is also set up nationally, and that there are areas through the country with larger quantities of packaging waste for recycling, and that are easily accessible, and areas where collection and recycling costs are high. And to say, okay, one costs and other in per average, it's the same. If an entire country is totally difficult to access because it's a small island, high cost for collection and recycling are needed, the fees, yes, the corresponding fees must be higher. Next question, do you have suggestion for examples on how resources of of an EPR system will fund the system, but it seems to be a chicken and egg. Yes, I've shown you that it can be both chicken and egg, and first it's important to set initial amounts, as I have shown you, but the registration is really very, very crucial to find out, to collect informations about it. Here's the question, do you have templates for the calculation of the fees? Here I show you one template. We use it in one country, very easy to say, okay, it's an Excel sheet, and the calculate amount we put here, and the calculate fees per ton, and then we have a sum, and here's the same, and say, okay, here the costs for collection must be covered by all costs here. And it's very, very, very easy to combine both and to say, okay, if here are higher fees, we can cover more costs, or if we need more costs, we should cover the fee. We should have and increase the fees. It's easy to build it, this calculation sheet. I would like to understand, in various countries around the world, do EPR fees attract fat? And if so, is it zero rating? It's a question about the fats. Yes, we know it. For example, in Belgium, it's 21%, and in Germany, 90%. If it's a private PRO, state-organized PROs and state-managed PROs are more likely to be liver that is not under this subject fact. Do you have any thoughts, guidance on how to obtain actual data to net cost recovery that is highly dependable and high confidence level, as we find that recyclers hold this information close to that? They don't speak about this. Yes, but if they want to be involved in a system, then they have to answer to tenders. And the best way to obtain data is to ask for tenders for specific collection, sorting, and recycling services. And in the first years, in particular, when the EPR system is set up, tenders can be invited. And they say, okay, if you want to work with us, you must give us the price. And how expensive is it if you maybe install or will implement 500 collection points? And they have to give you a price, otherwise they are out. What is the current state of art of harmonization of EPR design and criteria and eco-modulation in the EU? There are no harmonized standards for eco-modulation of packaging in Europe. However, some countries have taken these aspects in the fees. I have shown you these two examples from Belgium. We have also in France, in Italy, and later on I will show you some more examples. This is also about the eco-modulation and about information about the recyclability. As I shown you, there are different approaches to take an environmental criteria. Either a specific differentiation is made in a price, like in Belgium, or it is per overall, or there are only criteria, like in Germany. What does it mean? And these is related to materials and maybe to the glue, for example. And the PRO, as the central independent body, must then check the correctness of the information. If they say, okay, I pay less because my packaging is like this, and it can be only done on a random basis. And in individual cases, the PRO may also require the obliged companies to submit a certification from an auditor. In any case, there must be penalties if the obliged companies give wrong informations. We have here some examples for the design for recyclability. I don't want to explain all, only this one. If we have a PET bottle with a full sleeve, the recyclability is really bad because it cannot be with near infrared separator detected, but with a small sleeve, yes. And then the recyclability is by about 90% or more. But here, if it is not detected with the standard technology, then it is going to the residual waste. Or this one, if there is a special melting point cannot be reached, and if on a special melting point it becomes dark or brown, then you cannot recycle it, but you can change a little bit with another barrier of plasma coating, and then the color will be transparent. Or like this. I don't want to explain you can read it later on. Who are the product design change goals under EPR relevant in the context of upcoming design on this regulation, the eco-modulation? We are not that significant to incentive the design. Yes, the implementation of these eco design requirements from the directive. It is now not in discussion in the trilogue period. Includes requirements relating to durability, repairability, and recyclability. But for packaging, it's recyclability and the recycled content. Yes, but it must really be a high difference between non-recyclable and good recyclable in the fees. If there is for recyclable packaging paid 100 euro EPR fee, for multi-layer must be 500. Otherwise, if it's only 120 for the other, there is no incentive to change. It must be really high, that they feel the difference. Do you think that recycled content requires should be part, or should it be separate instrument? Yes, the recycled content in the packaging can be taken into account via eco-modulation of the fees if there is a financial relevant advantage for these. Then it can stimulate the change. As a further approach, quota specification can be an effective instrument with a framework. For example, it could be stipulated at a certain proportion of plastic must be recycled in closed loop process. But in the food contact packaging, it cannot use plastic packaging, only with PET. It's possible. 11, very fast. If EPR will greatly improve the availability of recycled polymers, why don't we see more packaging produced by, yes, as I told it, it's recycled polymers do not necessarily have to be used again in packaging. There are a lot of other kinds you can use it here. And I only know that the single-use plastic, this is the only example which says that PET bottles must contain at least 25% recycled content from 2025 and 30 from 2030, sorry. Yeah, but important is that virgin material is refused by recycling. How do we ensure transition from single-use to reusable? EPR applies the polluter pays principle by shifting the responsibility and financial cost for handling packaging waste after use. This means that the use of reusable packaging is not directly part of an EPR system. Yeah, but it can be part of a packaging regulation with quotas for reusable packaging or products. Still two other questions. Which policies are in place to facilitate emerging technology solution for circular eco-design, waste and end-of-waste lesson? Voluntary measures only help temporary, selectively, and do not solve problems. Only you need mandatory systems. EPR is in line with the market and has a fair approach. Yeah, the circular economy requires money, and these can be reused from an EPR system. On the other hand, the success will never be successful if there is a weak leadership, a lack of clear legal regulation, and corruption. How can the informal sector be financed with the system? Yes, they can be and should. You can learn, of course, they have the knowledge, and you can involve them, then staffs, or to involve them with contracts. Yeah. And I think this is the last one. Yes. The last one is what is the relationship between plastic credits and EPR? Participation in plastic credits is voluntary and often temporary, leading to little effects for the development of infrastructure, and is often limited to the establishment of collection points. Yeah, limitation to plastic collection and recycling, and not coverage all packaging and not all over a nation. And you can find here another background information from the Prevent Toolbox. Yeah, this is a very fast run through all the questions and all the issues, and from these to determine the fees. And I give back to Nicole.
Thanks a lot, Agnes. And you probably already saw a little bit with one corner of your eye that there's quite a lot of discussions already going on in the chat. And I would like to start with one comment and then also with a question around the topic of reuse. So first, Stefan pointed out that it's really important to not to reduce treatment obligation to recycling, so that also reuse and repair can be targeted by EPR fees, and also the proper treatment of all residues of repair and reuse and recycling steps. And he then also added that, of course, repair applies more for non-packaging items, but for packaging items, reuse can be quite relevant. And there was also one question around the topic of reuse to you, basically asking if EPR mechanisms would also lead to an increase in reusable packaging, if you see that there is any correlation, because then companies or also consumers would not have to pay for the EPR fees.
Yes, of course. As I already told, it can be part of an EPR regulation, but reusable and refillable packaging are not yet part. But if there is a pressure with the high price of single-use packaging, then there is pressure for refillable packaging. And like in a lot of European countries, there should be a part in the regulation, or can be a part in regulation, is that beverage packaging, for example, have to be used in a refillable way, maybe 80% of these beverage packaging. And then you need to show, okay, what are you doing for these? And say, okay, you are only allowed to bring your single-use packaging on the market if you have in the same line also and offer for the inhabitants refillable packaging. These can be, these can not only make pressure, this is part of sustainable whole concept.
Thank you, Agnes. Then I saw another two questions around the topic of free riders, one from Cameroon, where they are trying to reduce or address the topic or the problem of free riders by increasing data collection on a digital platform. And here, Ebai was wondering if he can include like the costs for this digital platform in the EPR cost structure, and if you could provide any maybe like simplified financial model which can also be used by low and middle income countries such as Cameroon. And yeah, and this
Yes,
was just
yes. Let me answer, because free rider are really a big problem. And let me say two things to this. First of all, it needs a very, very, very proper register and a good use from this register and no corruption. Yes, first. And all costs for building up this register and also for controlling the obliged companies can be covered and should be covered by the EPR fees. And to keep it simple, I can tell you that the GIZ has prepared for Jordan a register, and this can be used. It's in English and has place for a second language. It's English Arabic, it can English French, English German, English, two languages, and it can be given from GIZ for free. And I see here Yasser, and if you want, Nicole, we can give the information about this registration tool, for example, to Cameroon, but to all. And Dorothee Bürkle, she is the leader of this one, but it is free for all. You need only the technical basics and equipment for the installing this registration tool. It's easy. It's on the basic. You can have the master datas and then the datas about the packaging amounts, like I have shown to you. And this is easy to handle, it's easy to use, and they can also make all, to summarize, what is the total fees, what is the total amount, and they also produce the invoices already for the obliged companies. But I think it's easy to handle. And if there is interest, maybe we can arrange for this a separate meeting one.
Yeah, thanks, Agnes. So Ebai, please reach out to us again, and then we can share this registration tool, which was developed by a GIZ project, and whoever else is interested. Maybe we can also just link it in this presentation. I'll have to check with my GIZ colleagues on that one. Then there was a question on, I mean, you already answered that question. It was question one about the consumption costs, if they would increase. And there was a little discussion in the chat that, yeah, that surely these would increase, even though it might be very, very little, basically, the increase. And at the same time, they would also reduce the environmental costs or waste management costs that the population might face. So it will be it might even out or balance out. So that was just a little discussion that was ongoing. I don't know if Flavio or Tiago, you want to add something?
Yes, I've seen it should be high, they think, to make it that there is not so much packaging on the market, but most they are all afraid, oh, they have to pay so much, so much, so much, and the whole market will break together if there will be an EPR system. And we want to show, no, that is not all experience. Okay, on the same level, it's a little bit more. But of course, the producer are free to say, okay, for the packaging, we can substitute by reusable packaging. I make it very high, yeah, and to say, okay, for plastic bags, I take 20 cents per bag, and then okay, everybody is thinking they are free to do this, yeah, but to cover the costs for a nationwide collection system, it's not so high, and the economy of the country will not be damaged.
Thanks, Agnes. Then there were two questions around the calculation of the fees. One asking about if like costs for littering are included into the equation. And the second one asking if like the prices for recycled content, which are quite volatile, also influence the fees.
Yeah. First question, littering costs in Europe. The European Commission in the single-use plastics directive, they have to be covered by the producers. They need not to be part of the EPR system. That can be with tax or in other way be covered. Like in Germany, they want to cover it in a separate law, yeah. But they can also be covered by the EPR system, yeah. And but you have to know, okay, is it literally costs in the streets, in the beaches, how to work together with the municipalities, and how to avoid this littering. But it can be covered if it is good organized also by these EPR fees. Yes, it is. And the second question was, sorry, was war jetzt meine? Sorry, I forgot.
About
This
the
was
recycled content.
the recycled content. Yes, the cost for recyclates or the price is sometimes high or sometimes low. Yes, of course. But if producer of packaging, manufacturer is changing his technology to use recycled content, we know it in the paper industry or glass industry, yeah, they use all the recycled content and recycled paper. And these should also increase for plastic packaging and beverage cartons. Yes, then even if then the price will not will not have such a big range, we think. But even if they will have a range, it will be covered on every item, not in a way that you will feel it so much. Yeah, it's a little bit to feel, but not. We will not have on the last step a high range, even if the price is not constant. I hope I answered.
Yeah, I think that was clear. Thank you. Then there was another question or a little discussion also in the chat on quota, like based on question 10 on quota for closed loop recycled material, if you have any examples. And we heard that Brazil is starting to work on a regulation or rule for recycled quota, but also with a lot of exceptions. I don't know if you have any other examples, Agnes.
In using packaging, food grade packaging, it's normally in the most countries only allowed for PET bottles, and there we have closed loop law like this, as I showed. But this is the only one I know. But we have, yes, to say, okay, PET has recycled content and closed loop with 25% in 2025 and 30% in 2030. In other packaging, like paper packaging or glass in glass, it's normal. In metal, it's normal. Yes, and we have a lot of like the Blue Angel or other was heißt Auszeichnung? Also labels, yes, we have a lot of labels to show, okay, this is recycled content of 30% of 20%. I don't know about other quotas, not yet in packaging, only in PET bottles, not in other packaging. Maybe there are, but I don't know. But I know it for textiles. The first EPR system for textiles are now built up, and therefore closed loop fiber to fiber recycling should be 10%, for example, in Netherlands and so on. This is in textiles. It will be have a big it will be a big thing there. But I don't know whether it will also be in packaging, because in paper, glass, and metal, it's already. In PET, it's growing up. In other plastic packaging, it's a little bit different, more difficult,
Thank
more.
you.
Maybe there are other, I'm interested in other examples, if there are.
Yeah, so feel free to raise your hand if you also have an example. Otherwise, I will continue with the next set of questions around the topic of like service packaging, if I understand correctly. One is like like double checking again if EPR regulations in Europe oblige packaging sold as a product, for example, aluminium pie plates or paper cups, since they are like they resemble packaging but are yeah, similarly managed in the system, or the question is if they're similarly managed. And in this regard, there's also another question: if the costs for service packaging are charged once the packaging is filled, like in small restaurants and selling points, then the question is if a lot of the material might fall out because SMEs are excluded from EPR payment.
First, I have three pillars of my answers. First, there are two kinds of service packaging. Service packaging which are used in the household. Yeah, they are products using in my household, like aluminium paper or bags. I buy them unfilled, and then they are like products which I buy. But under EPR are the service packaging, maybe from McDonald's and from all other service and soup kitchens and so on, which are filled when you are buying, yeah, with food or with other things, most with food. These, they have to be covered by the EPR system. And this packaging here is, they will not be recycled. Oh, they should be recycled as all other packaging also, and they should change the content and the material that they can be recycled, and they should have recycling quotas that they should be made from paper or from glass or from other, or they should be reusable. This would be the best way. And therefore, we have the view on these service packaging the same than on all packaging. And okay, who will bear the cost of this? First of all, the cost will bear by the producers or importers of these packaging. And they can give, and they should give, the costs with to the kiosk and the retailers and the small shops where in the soup kitchen where it will be refilled. Yes, of course. And then there is no free riding, and it can be recycled. But if there they use it and you buy it from China, for example, they send it online to us and we will not register this, then it's free riding and has to be with penalties and has to be controlled. Yes. And it is forbidden like this. Yeah. I hope this answer. I know that this whole area of the service packaging, the online sellings and so on are really difficult and more difficult to control than packaging brought on the market in a supermarket, like from Nestle or something else. It's easier to control. The others needs more effort for the controlling and more regulations. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, please feel free to raise your hand again. Then there was another question, and it's more and more difficult to cluster now that questions are coming in so quickly. Another question on the topic of like if like plastic packaging which is covered through sorting of mixed collected waste, if there is any approach to calculate a fair EPR cost coverage for collection and sorting of plastic packaging, basically.
The revenues of,
It's by Jakob. Maybe Jakob, you can otherwise
yes,
unmute yourself and explain.
It's recovered through sorting and case where plastic packaging is recovered through sorting and mixed collection waste. What is the approach to yeah, the approach is to make tenders, to ask the private industry what are the costs for sorting, what are the real costs, what do you need? If I send to you 10,000 tons of mixed lightweight packaging, what do you need for sorting in 10 different material fractions, PET, in glass, in paper, in metal, aluminium metals, in other. And then you can calculate these only on on the basic of the offer, basic of the tender. If you ask these private companies and you have the offers of the companies and compare the offers and say, okay, is it serious or do they only say something because they have not the experience about the cost and have to learn, and then say, okay, calculate this for 10 years or 5 years or 2 years for sorting, because if it's only for a period of 1 year, nobody will build up sorting plant if they have only a contract to have for 1 year, and you have to renegotiate and to negotiate this with the industry and the costs and how to calculate. And maybe there will be an annex to say, okay, if the cost will be higher like this and this, we have to make a new calculation. It's really difficult. After 3 years, our experience in Germany was there were already in the middle of the year, the total amount fee income was gone, and they had no money in 1993, and they have to calculate new and to make higher costs for the fees. Yeah. It's really to know these are learning years and to try to have really a lot of communication must be very, very good between the sorters, recyclers, the private and the companies done by the PRO. It's a lot of work. It's not so easy to be done. Yeah, input, output, and we have the system. No, it's really more complicated, and to bring all parties together and to formulate maybe new tenders, to learn from each other, and not to say, okay, I am the boss and I bring it through and calculate like this. It's good to be really flexible in the first years. Yeah.
Thank you. Then there was another question, or I think even two questions around the topic of online sales. If there is any examples, especially also of quantitative results from maybe Germany or France around the regulations of EPR and online sales.
Yes, online sales and online platforms, there are one of the main sources of free riding all over Europe and especially also in Germany. Not only for packaging, also for e-waste. We have also an EPR system for e-waste and for other items. Now it is in the law more concrete that every online importer and online who offers via online has third person in Germany, for example, who has to pay the fees. Yeah, otherwise it's forbidden to bring it online on a market in Germany. They have to have a company in Germany directly. If the online shop is in Germany, then you can give penalties direct to this, or they have be in a partnership in contract with a third party who has to pay for this and to guarantee that they paid. And this really helped. We have a lot of experience now since 3 years, and the free riding decreases, and the amount of companies who are paying for this increased really a lot, especially for e-waste and electronic equipment, were our experience very positive with these new regulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, then there was a bit of a discussion around the recycled resin, if it has to come from packaging, and Ursula from the Green Dot already answered that in the EU this is the case. The recycled content has to come from packaging and even from post-consumer packaging, excluding post-production materials. And that it is important to agree on standards and certification. And then a follow-up question in this regard was if the recycled plastics come from chemical recycling, like depolymerization, okay, long word, depolymerization, how is the sourcing from post-consumer packaging verified?
Yeah. Hi, Ursula.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, of course, you need a very, very good mass flow analysis from the source of the packaging that you can see it's post-consumer packaging. But of course, in the last percent, you cannot be sure that it is not with pre-consumer packaging mixed. But of course, there are audit schemes with Recyclers or with EU-Zertplast, which really, really starts at the source of these packaging. And but you need really, of course, a certification, an audit of these from all the steps. And the depolymerization is really a new field. And it is in the beginning of the certification, all of these waste streams, that it is in equal quality, the certification and audits, and has equal information than the mechanical recycling. But because it is more mixture, because it is more difficult, of course, I don't know, maybe you know it better, whether there are already mandatory rules for this. I think it's now still on the in the responsibility of the auditors to say it's like this. Yeah. And there is not a higher structure and organization on this, and the rules are starting now. Maybe Ursula, I don't know, you can add this better.
Sure. I mean, of course, with chemical recycling, and we're not going to open that bag now, some other time. But it will have to be done by mass balance. And the discussion right now is mass balance fuel exempt. So you do not count for any materials that are then used for energy or fuels. And some more in-depth discussion on mass balance polymers only, but that's,
yeah,
for the advanced course here. But certification, of course, there is the ISCC Plus, and many agencies, of course. Any investment in chemical recycling has to be based on a strict regimen of certification, so that actually you can trade the materials, or you can count the materials as recycled content. So the industry is also very interested in having an industry standard that is applicable to all.
But from my view, it's not available till now, but it is in discussion, and in a lot of groups, it isn't now in discussion to have regulation like this. Not only for packaging, also it's a big issue if you discuss about textile waste, because textile waste is more important. Chemical recycling is very, very important for recycling of textiles also. Packaging and textiles, these are the two big parts of chemical recycling: plastic packaging and textile waste. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. And I think the last set of like comments and questions that were in the chat were again around the topic of like putting the higher costs of that might occur due to EPR onto the consumer, that it should really be fair, especially in like low and middle income countries, that the poorest might even be affected if the price increases by a very few cents. And other experts from the community already answered also or jumped into the discussion, providing examples of how little the amount is that it would be increased, and how much higher, for example, also the costs for collection, curbside collection and sorting, etc., would be also for the population. So I would invite everybody just to read through the chat if you're interested in some of the also comments from the audience and EPR community that gathered here today. There's also 2 publications that have been linked in the chat by Reed. Thank you for that. One on eco-modulation by, let me just quickly check, by a group of authors. I'm not sure if there's an institution behind this, and then also one on producer extended producer responsibility, extended and like additional product groups and challenges throughout the product life cycle by OECD. And I will check if these 2 publications are already in our library as well. I think the OECD one surely is, because OECD is one of our core members or core partners. And I will check if the other one is as well. Otherwise, we still have 6 more minutes. So if anybody feels like I skipped or did not put enough attention to one of your questions, please feel free maybe to raise your hand. I'm really sorry if I did not acknowledge your question. Please feel free to use the time also if you have any other thoughts or ideas which you would like to share? If that is not the case, then I think nobody is sad to have 5 minutes break before they start the next call. So thank you everybody for joining and for the very, very interesting questions and discussions. And thanks a lot also Agnes and Nicola for providing the input and insights. And yeah, have a great end of the year. And a good start and peaceful start into the next year. And yeah, we will continue with some kind of discussions and sessions on EPR next year because there is a huge amount of interest around this topic. And we're really glad about that. So thank you. And yeah, have a great holiday.
Yeah, thank you. And also from our side, thank you for your interest and have a good Christmas time from now. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Happy
New Year.
holidays. Bye-bye.